As you entered the room, you couldn't help but notice the warm glow that filled the space. The little girl Minji was sitting on the floor, playing with her toys, her long brown hair flowing over her shoulders. She looked up at you and gave you a shy smile, instantly melting your heart. "Hi there, Minji. I'm Ryan." You introduced yourself, kneeling down to be at her level. Minji hesitated for a moment before extending her hand for you to shake. "Hi, Ryan," she replied softly. You noticed a man standing in the doorway watching you both intently. He was taller than you, with broad shoulders that filled out his shirt perfectly. He had kind eyes that twinkled at the corners when he smiled, which he did now, walking over to you both. "Hi there, Ryan. I'm Minji's dad, Jimin. It's great to meet you," he said, extending his hand. You took it, feeling a spark of electricity run through your body. His touch was warm and reassuring. "It's nice to meet you too, Jimin," you replied, trying to keep your cool. Inside, however, you were a mess of butterflies and nervous. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of storytelling, cuddles, and laughter. As you tucked Minji into bed, you couldn't help but feel a sense of contentment wash over you. You loved spending time with her, and her father was the cherry on top. "Good night, Minji. Sweet dreams," you whispered, kissing her forehead. Minji's eyes fluttered close, and she let out a soft snore. You turned to leave the room. You were stopped by Jimin's voice. "Ryan, would you like to join me for a drink?" he asked, his voice low and inviting. Your heart raced in your chest, but you tried to play it cool. "I'd love to," you replied, following him out of the room. You sat together on the couch, sipping your drinks and talking about your day. As the conversation flowed easily between you both, you found yourself drawn to Jimin's warmth and charm. He was a great father, and it was clear that he loved his daughter deeply. "So, Ryan, tell me more about yourself," Jimin asked, leaning in towards you. You felt your cheeks flush at his attention and took a sip of your drink to steady your nerves. "Well, I'm originally from Seoul, but I moved here for college. I'm a writer, actually," you said, proud of your accomplishments. Jimin's eyes widened in surprise. "A writer? That's amazing. What do you write?" he asked, his interest piqued. "Mostly romance novels, but I've dabbled in other genres too," you replied, feeling more at ease with him. You talked late into the night, your conversation flowing effortlessly. As you stood to leave, you felt a strange tingling sensation separate through your body. You turned back to face Jimin, feeling drawn to him in a way you couldn't explain. "Thank you for a wonderful evening, Jimin," you said, your voice barely above a whisper. He stood up too, taking your hand in his. "The pleasure was all mine, Ryan. I look forward to seeing you again soon," he replied, his eyes holding a promise you couldn't quite decipher. You smiled shyly, your heart racing as you tried to read the expression on his face. "I'd like that," you managed to say before turning and walking slowly out of the house. The days turned into weeks, and you found yourself looking forward to your evenings with Minji and Jimin. You continued to share stories and laughter, but as the weeks passed, you couldn't help but wonder if there was something more between you both. One night, as you sat together on the couch, Jimin finally asked you out on an official date. Your heart soared at the thought of spending time with him outside. You made plans for the following weekend, and you couldn't wait for the day to arrive. As the date finally came around, you felt nervous but excited as you got ready. You put on your favorite dress, a soft pink one that hugged your curves and made you feel confident. When Jimin arrived to pick you up, he took one look at you and his eyes widened in surprise. "You look absolutely stunning, Ryan," he said, offering you his arm. You smiled up at him, feeling a rush of happiness and desire course through you. The date was perfect. You talked, laughed, danced, and even shared your first kiss under the stars. As you said goodnight at your doorstep, Jimin leaned in and kissed you again, his hands cupping your face. "I had such a wonderful time tonight," he whispered. "I think I'm falling in love with you." Your heart skipped a beat. "I'm falling in love with you too, Jimin," you replied, your voice barely audible. He smiled down at you, his eyes glistening in the dim light. "Then I think we should tell Minji tomorrow," he said, pressing a tender kiss on your lips. "I want her to know that she'll always have us, no matter what." You nodded, tears welling up in your eyes. You knew that Minji would be happy to have you both in her life, and that you would make a wonderful family together. As you stood there holding each other close, you couldn't help but feel grateful for the love that you both had for each other. You couldn't believe it. You were in love with Minji's father, and he felt the same way about you. Both of you decided to tell Minji the news the following day. As you sat down with Minji, you couldn't help but feel nervous. What if she didn't approve? What if she didn't want you both to be together? "Minji, we need to talk to you about something important," Jimin began. He took a deep breath and looked at you, who nodded encouragingly. "We're in love with each other, Minji," you said, your voice shaking slightly. "And we want to be together forever." Minji's eyes widened in surprise, but she didn't seem upset. In fact, she smiled brightly at you. "I'm happy for you both," she said, hugging you both tightly. "I love you both so much." Tears of joy streamed down your face as you hugged Minji back. You knew that Minji would always be a part of your lives, and you would always be there for her. You were a family now, and nothing could break your bond. As you and Jimin celebrated your newfound love and impending family, you were unaware of the looming presence of Jimin's ex-girlfriend, Minji's biological mother. You felt your heart drop as you heard the voice outside the main door. It was Jimin's ex-girlfriend, Minji's biological mother. You knew this was going to be a difficult conversation. As you both walked towards the main door, you could feel the tension in the air. "Jimin, we need to talk," the woman said, her voice cold and stern. Jimin looked at you, his eyes filled with regret. "Ryan, I'll be right back," he said, squeezing your hand before walking into the other room. You sat nervously on the couch, your mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Minutes felt like hours as you waited for Jimin to return. When he finally reappeared, his face was pale and he looked drained. "What happened?" you asked, your voice trembling. "Minji's mother wants to take her away," Jimin replied, his voice cracking. "She says she's not ready for me to have custody, and she wants to raise Minji herself." You felt a wave of anger and sadness wash over you. "That's not fair," you said, your voice shaking with emotion. "Minji loves you, and you love her. She should be with you." Jimin sighed heavily, running hands through his hair. "I know, but the courts might not see it that way," he said, his voice resigned. You took Jimin's hand in yours, feeling the warmth of his skin against your own. "We'll figure this out together," you said, trying to sound more confident than you felt. "We have each other, and that's all that matters." Your heart ached for Minji, but you knew you both had to be strong for her. You spent the next few days pouring your hearts out to Minji, reassuring her that no matter what happened, you would always love her and be there for her. Minji clung to you both, but eventually she seemed to accept your words. As the court date drew nearer, you and Jimin did everything you could to prepare. You hired lawyers and gathered evidence to prove that you were the best parents for Minji. You spent countless hours discussing your plans for Minji's future and how you would make sure she never had to go through anything like this again. After weeks of preparation and countless sleepless nights, the day of the court hearing finally arrived. You and Jimin sat side by side in the courtroom, your hands clasped tightly as you waited for your turn to speak. You presented the judge with evidence of Minji's mother's history of abandonment and neglect, as well as the stable, loving home that you had built for Minji. The judge listened intently to your arguments and examined the evidence before making a decision. Finally, the judge spoke. "I have reviewed all of the evidence presented, and it is clear that Minji's best interests lie with her father Jimin. He has proven himself to be a devoted and loving parent, and Minji has formed a strong bond with him and Ryan." You and Jimin couldn't help but exchange relieved glances as the judge continued. "Furthermore, Minji's mother's motives for seeking custody appear to be primarily financial in nature. The court finds this to be highly unconscionable, and as such, her petition is hereby denied." as the judge banged the gavel to signal the end of the hearing, you and Jimin felt a weight lift off your shoulders. You leaned in for a celebratory hug, tears of joy streaming down your faces. You had done it. Minji was going to stay with you where she belonged. With the legal battle behind you, you focused on rebuilding your lives and creating a safe, loving home for Minji. Minji thrived under your care, growing into a happy, healthy child who loved nothing more than spending time with her parents and her extended family. And as for your relationship, it only grew stronger. You and Jimin knew that you had each other to thank for helping you navigate the ups and downs of parenthood, and for being there to support Minji through thick and thin. Both of you cherished your life together, and you knew that no matter what challenges came your way, you would always be a family. She was his daughter's babysitter, but also his second chance at love. Together they made a happy family.